So welcome to Fair Riders Diaries. We're going to be doing something a little bit different today. We're not going to be going out for a ride because we're going to be going out for a ride tomorrow to France. And I'm going to do a quick video just about the sort of stuff that I'd like to take with me when I want to go abroad touring. Now, this is the first I've been touring for 16 years maybe, 16 years. So a lot of things have changed. But I'm going to be taking a certain amount of kit, so it's not a complete how-to or a comprehensive list. It's more of a case of do's and don'ts, and this is just what I'm going to do. So people can work out their own list, they can work out what they want to take, and this is just what I'm going to do. So we're going to start with a couple of the essentials. The essentials, obviously, are going to be things like your passport, your driving licence, documents, that sort of stuff. So your driving licence is upstairs. I'll start with the passport. Passport I'm going to have to take with me. Everyone's going to have to take one with them. And there's a couple of things you can take with your passport which are going to be really handy. The first of all, I suppose, is going to be the European Health Card. Now, it looks something like this. It doesn't give you any comprehensive health care, but what it might do is just get you out of a spot, and that's all you really want it for. It's nothing. It doesn't cost a thing. You can get it on the government website, and it takes about 3 weeks to come through. And yeah, who knows, it might come in handy. It says on the back here, it's not valid for private treatment. You may be quicker to claim a refund of medical expenses if you're still abroad. Make sure you have valid travel insurance. Okay, so its validity is limited, shall we say. But I'd rather have it than need it, so I'm going to take it with me. Something else I'm going to take with me is this. It's a credit card. Now, I don't particularly like credit cards. I like debit cards. I don't want to be spending money I haven't got because that leads to the dark side. But this one's particularly useful, partly because all credit cards, in case you don't know, if you buy anything on your credit card, you get a certain degree of insurance with whatever it is that you've purchased. And I don't know the full ins and outs of it. I dare say it differs for every card. But certainly, if there's a problem with something I bought on my credit card, it's the credit card's responsibility to chase that problem up rather than your own. So I think that's a good thing to start off with. It's a MasterCard, which differs from my Visa, so it's nice to have both of these major credit cards covered. But most importantly, I suppose, this particular card is it's a Halifax card. I don't bank with Halifax, I just applied for it online. It doesn't charge you for cash withdrawals, which comes in handy because my bank does, and most of them do, come to think of it. So every time I'm drawing out money, I'm either paying a 3% cash withdrawal charge or £3, whichever is the greater. So every time I draw money out, it costs me £3 straight away. So this will kind of get rid of that, which is nice. So I'm going to keep both of those in my passport, along with some small bills and some small coins in euros because I'm only touring in Europe, and a couple of photos which I'm not going to need, but I'm going to keep them there anyway, in a nice thick plastic case because you don't want this stuff to get wet. Passports, as you probably well know, are still stamped with good old-fashioned ink on good old-fashioned paper, and none of these things work very well with water. So, nice plastic case for those. Other things I'm going to need, like I said before, is my driving licence, but also the counterpart. There you go. Do you remember those? Got to bring it with you because that's going to have all your endorsements on, and apparently it's illegal to carry just the credit card sized driving licence. You've got to take this as well. So I'd much rather have it with me than need it. Same goes for my B5 document. Some countries accept photocopies, I'm taking the original. Ditto for the MOT test certificate. And then finally, certificate of motor insurance. So not only am I taking my certificate of motor insurance, but also the part of it that says that I'm covered for Europe. Okay? So those are all the documents that I think you have to take. And if you don't, as far as I'm gathered, the fines over in Europe, they're fairly extensive, so you'll put a big dent in your holiday fund straight away. Stuff that you don't need to take, but I'm taking anyway, because I just think it saves a whole lot of time and hassle. All the paperwork for my European breakdown cover. Now it's not exactly straightforward with this bike because it's 17 years old, and an awful lot of the breakdown covers for Europe won't cover bikes over 15 years old. The only ones I found were a German company called ATAC, but I didn't deal with those. I dealt with the Meg Group, kindly put onto me by Duke Dyson, and I've got myself a European cover with them, including repatriation. Now this is important because if you have an accident, if you get your bike stolen, if it's recovered, if the valuers think it's not worth them while bringing it back, you've got to make sure you've got this repatriation, because otherwise they'll just leave it there and give you a cash check minus your excess, which isn't very satisfying, to be honest. I'd much rather bring the bike home, to be perfectly honest. And for a lot of people, a bike is just a nuts and bolts, but I've been through a lot with this bike and I want to bring it home with me, and I don't care if it's a burnt out wreck, I'm taking it back home. Repatriation, that's what you need for it. So we've got cover for that. We've also got, here we are, e-tickets for my ferry out and my ferry back. Now you could just write down your booking reference number, but I'd much rather have this piece of paper from Brittany Ferries or from wherever the other one is, DFDS, saying my reference number, the make of the bike, the person travelling with it, just so there's no grey area. I like things black and white, so I'm going to take all that with me anyway. And again, these items come in a plastic bag. There, you don't want to get them wet, they're still paper. And that's going to live in the roof of my tail bag. So that's all my documents sorted out. For security, I don't think anyone really wants to bring along a 3 kilo chain. You just don't. And to be honest, it's a bit of overkill for a bike worth, I don't know, 1,500 quid at a push. So I'm bringing along a couple of locks, 2 different locks. First is my faithful old Abus Discus. I've had this about 15 years, and it's a great little lock. It just slides through the disc. It's nothing special, but the shank on it is very, very small. That's what we've got. So once that's through the disc, there's very little room for a pair of bolt cutters to get purchase on this. And hardened steel, I mean, you have a job getting through that anyway. So I'm taking one of those. And the other one is this. It's just a padlock that I picked up from B&Q. And what I particularly liked about it is that it's got a hexagonal shank. So if you can see that, apart from the fact it's hardened steel also. And the nice thing about this is, and I don't understand why all padlocks don't have this, is that once this is on your disc, if you want to get a pair of bolt cutters on this, you can get a pair of bolt cutters on, but like any other regular padlock, like this one, you got this, you cut it once, you spin the lock round, you take the lock off. If you've got a hexagonal shank, well, that's not going anywhere. You've got to cut that twice. And anything that makes the thieves' job harder, I'm quite a fan of. So I'll be taking one of these and the discus lock. The discus lock naturally goes around the disc. This one actually fits through my sprockets. I remember reading years and years and years ago that it probably wouldn't be a bad idea to do that, because some thieves who are desperate will cut the disc. I've never heard of it myself, but belts and braces, and for the size of them and for the weight of them, it's got to be better than taking a 4 kilo chain. So I'm taking those along with me. Now for the toolkit, and people are going to think it's a little bit of overkill, I'm bringing along one of these. Now this is a mini compressor. You've all seen them on eBay. They come in a box like this, cost about a £5. And once you take it out of that nasty plastic covering, it's trying to mimic a regular compressor, it's actually really quite small. And I've used this to pump up the tyres on a 3.5 tonne van, so I know it will do the job. And it's got a 12 volt power connector. 12 volt power connector is going to be used right here, because I've got a 12 volt socket fitted to the bike to power the sat nav and sometimes also the drift. So I quite like the idea of taking this along for the size and the weight it is. I know some people, they like canisters, and canisters do the job, but they only do the job once, and that you can use over and over and over again. I like that reusability idea of it. And canisters, I've been told, I don't know if this is true, they won't always get that tyre up to pressure. So if I need 36 psi in my front tyre and it's only doing 30 or 29, that's not really what I want. I want to make sure I can get up to pressure. So this is my toolkit. Whoops. There we go. And this is basically all the tools that I would normally use to work on a bike if I was in the shed. So I've got my 3/8 drive. 3x drive, and it's also got an adapter to accept 1/4 inch. I've got all my sockets that I normally use to take off the bodywork, take off various bits and pieces, to take off the pinch bolt to adjust the chain on the back. I've got my Halford screwdriver, which of course is square ended, so it accepts some of those sockets, but mostly so you accept the adapter, so I can put all the different Phillips flathead bits in it. Various zip ties, and the only thing from the Honda toolkit I've got is my C-spanner, and again that's how I can get a purchase on that rear eccentric adjuster to change the tension on the chain. All that's going in this little box, in this little case. Now you can take your Honda toolkit with you, but let's face it, the Honda toolkit is just a base, it's just a piece of manky pressed steel. It might do the job, but I don't know. I'd rather take the tools that I'd normally work on the bike with. I think what's particularly good is if you want to work out a toolkit, work it all out, put it to one side, and then try and take everything off your bike that you normally would. So try and take the side panels off, try and take the seat panels off, try and take the tank off. If you can't do those things with the tools that you've put to one side, you're not going to do it when you're out on the road. So the first thing I did with that toolkit was strip the bike down, and you can do that. So as far as I'm concerned, it's the toolkit for the job. Other bits and pieces that I've taken. Medikit. Now, all I'm going to take in a medikit is a compression bandage, because if anything's going to happen, it's going to be an injury rather than an illness. So if I trip up, if I turn an ankle, if I do any of these sorts of things, compression bandage is going to come in a lot more handy than anything else, like a plaster. I mean, you can get a plaster anyway, to be perfectly honest. We've got some ibuprofen. We've got, here we go, gut bug drugs. For the size and the weight of them, gut bug drugs, you've got to take them with you. I mean, think about it. If you get some kind of gut illness and you get the squits and you're riding around astride a motorcycle, you know, there's no, how can you put this? There's no clench factor there when you've got one leg either side of the saddle. So, gut bug drugs, you've got to have them, because it's going to be painfully obvious what happens if you don't. So, that's all it is. Tiny medikit, and there's other few bits and pieces, antiseptic wipes and plasters and stuff in there. So, what else do we have? Well, we've got the bike. And it should be familiar to you all by now. It's a VFR 750, 1997. It's done 93,000 miles, and it's in absolutely tip-top condition. And it needs to be, because you're going to be doing about 2,000 miles while you're out on the road. So it's no good going out with a bike that's only got 1,500 miles left in its back tyre, or its pads are down to the wear limiters, or the chain shanked, none of these sorts of things. You know, this bike, it's had a service recently, it's got good tyres, it's got good pad life left, and it's got a new chain and sprockets on. So it's only done about 1,200 miles since all that's been done, and it is absolutely tip-top. Okay, and it needs to be. On the back there, we've got a couple of panniers. On this pannier, we've got tent, mat, sleeping bag. I don't know if I'm camping, but I'd rather have it than need it. On the other side, I've got all my clothes. So that's the panniers pretty much sorted out. I don't like overloading panniers. I don't like them wider than the wing mirrors, for instance, especially when you're doing things like filtering, because if I can't get my wing mirrors through, then I know the panniers won't go through. If I can get my wing mirrors through but the panniers are sticking out, then that couldn't turn out so well. So I like to keep them fairly thin. This is my waterproofs. Waterproofs come in a bum bag. Waterproofs have their own case, but I like the idea of being able to use this bum bag for something else also. So the bum bag also unzips at the bottom, and you've got a small knapsack in there. Knapsack works really well. So anything that serves two purposes, I really like the idea of. So those are my waterproofs, and then finally, put this to one side. This is my tail bag, and the tail bag's got all the rest of the junk in. So the tail bag's going to hold the toolkit. It's going to hold all my chargers and batteries and cameras and all those other little bits and pieces. It's got my stove, and my pots and pans in there, and it's got my travel towel, and that's all it's really going to take, and my toiletries bag. And this just sits on the top, like so, and that's everything. That's everything done, and that's really how it's going to set off. Now, I've probably forgotten a shitload of gear, but for the life of me, I can't think what any of those things are now. So that's what we're going to take with us, and that's my bike all sorted out. So have fun, enjoy yourselves, and I'll speak to you all soon.